Imagine waking up to a world completely buried in ice. No sunrise, no warmth. Just white, endless and silent, stretching in every direction as far as the eye can see. 40,000 years ago, this was Earth at its harshest. And for the humans who lived through it, one truth ruled every single day. A single night without fire meant your entire family froze to death. This is the story of how they survived the coldest ice age humanity has ever known. This was the Last Glacial Maximum, the peak of the Ice Age, when ice sheets swallowed entire continents and turned once green land into a frozen wasteland. Small clans of early humans moved constantly across this landscape, chasing herds of mammoth and reindeer, following the only food that could sustain them through the deep cold. There was no permanent home here. Every decision was a matter of life and death. Where to camp, when to move, who carried the fire. One such clan, no more than 8 people, had been walking since dawn. Elders, hunters, mothers, and children, all wrapped in crude hides, pushing forward across a snowfield that seemed to have no end. By late afternoon, they found what little shelter the land offered. A shallow rock overhang at the base of a ridge, just enough to break the worst of the wind. It would have to be enough. At the center of everything they carried, more precious than food, more precious than any tool, was one small, fragile bundle. The embers of their fire, kept alive since the last camp. But the sky was changing. The wind that had been at their backs all day suddenly turned, sharp and biting, carrying with it a smell the elders knew too well. A storm was coming, and on the open tundra, a storm like this could kill faster than any predator that hunted them. There was no time to run, and no time to search for better shelter. They would have to survive the night exactly where they stood. Every hand moved at once. Hides were lashed down tighter against the rock. Stones were piled against gaps in the wind. Children were pulled into the center of the group, away from the cold edges where the wind cut deepest. Within minutes, the blizzard swallowed the camp whole. Snow moved sideways instead of down. The temperature dropped far below anything the human body was built to endure unprotected. Visibility collapsed to almost nothing beyond arm's length. But they weren't entirely unprotected, because at the center of their huddled circle, a small fire still burned, and keeping it alive was not a comfort. It was the single most important task any of them would perform that night. One member of the clan was given no other job but this: to guard the flame, to shield it with his own body if he had to make sure it never went dark. A single gust of wind could undo hours of careful work in seconds. Wet wood, a careless gap in the windbreak, one moment of exhaustion, any of these could end everything they had built. The clan's elders carried knowledge passed down across generations, knowledge that meant the difference between life and death on nights like this. They knew which wood burned longest and steadiest. They knew that fat-soaked bone taken from the last kill could feed a dying flame when dry wood ran short. They knew how to build a fire low and tight, cut by stone, so that even a screaming wind couldn't reach its heart. Through the worst hours of that night, hands fed the flame constantly, patiently, refusing to let it die even as the storm did everything it could to smother it. From outside, buried almost completely in drifting snow, that faint orange glow was the only sign that anything, was still alive out there at all. But fire alone could not save them. The human body loses heat fast, and no single flame could reach every person crouched in that shelter at once. So over many generations, these humans had learned something their distant ancestors never needed to know: how to build themselves a second skin. It began with hide, carefully scraped clean and softened by hand, layered rather than worn single and thin. An inner layer of soft fur held in body heat. An outer layer of coarser, tougher hide turned the wind and snow away before it ever reached the skin beneath. This was not simple wrapping. It was early tailoring, shaped by necessity rather than fashion. Sleeves were cut and bound at the wrist. Leggings were shaped to the leg and sealed at the ankle. Even footwear was cut and stitched to the shape of the foot, so that no gap was left for the cold to creep through. At the heart of this invention was a tool small enough to lose in the snow, yet powerful enough to change the fate of an entire species: the needle, carved from bone, paired with sinew thread pulled from the tendons of hunted animals. With it, hide could be joined into fitted garments instead of loose, gaping wraps. A child could be sewn into a small coat shaped just for them, sealed tight at the wrists and ankles so no wind could find its way in. This quiet invention meant humans could now trap their own body heat instead of constantly losing it, carrying their own personal shelter with them wherever the hunt or the season demanded they go. By dawn, the wind had finally begun to fall silent. The storm that should have ended this small clan had passed over them and moved on. One by one, stiff with cold but alive, they stepped out from beneath the rock overhang into a world made new by snow. Their fire, protected all night by patient, aching hands, still glowed faintly at the center of its bed of ash. Their clothing, stitched together out of pure necessity, had held the worst of the cold at bay through hours that should have killed them. They had survived not through strength alone, but through knowledge. Fire kept alive by human hands refusing to give up, and clothing invented not for comfort, but for survival. And they carried both forward with them, the fire and the skill, into the next camp and the next storm, and the one after that. This single night, repeated in some form thousands of times over thousands of years, across countless clans just like this one, is a part of why we are here at all. Every one of us descends from someone who kept a fire alive when it mattered most, and who learned to turn animal hide and bone needle into the difference between life and death. This is how early humans survived the coldest ice age, and it is why the human story never ended in the ice. In many ways, it began there. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's coldest chapter, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of survival from our ancient past.